Hi, I'm Mark from Founders&Tips, and today we're talking with Aaron Ross, author of Predictable Revenues and the sequel From Impossible to Inevitable. Aaron? How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Those are the titles for now in English, but hope someday to get them into Spanish. I'm not quite
Ah,
there yet.
I know you're working on it. Cool. Your book mostly focused on try to automate or making more industrialized the selling process. Why is so difficult the selling process on companies? Why it's one of the part that it's more human depending activity?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to believe I've been doing sales for 15 years now or so.
Mhm.
Since I worked at Salesforce.com, as the book goes into, helped create their outbound sales team and process. And through that, and that helped create a more, by now it's been more than $1 billion in revenue for them. But by working through that and then leaving and seeing how other companies operated, excuse me. One thing I saw was that um, sales for most companies is hard,
Mhm.
and they make it even harder on themselves by doing things like making all of their salespeople also do all their prospecting.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
I'll give you one of the most important points, which has changed again how Silicon Valley and a lot of companies in the United States now sell is it's very important, for example, um, to specialize your sales team.
Mhm.
Right? So think about all the sports team, any sports team you can think of. You've got
Mhm.
forwards or attackers, you've got defenders, midfield, goalie. I don't know any sport where you don't have different people playing different roles and helping each other, but not in sales. Usually, salespeople have to do all their own prospecting. They might manage their own customers and close their own business. It's just too much. So what one of the things you've seen the most dramatic change in sales and productivity is when you take your salespeople and you divide them into a team of specialists, right?
Mhm.
So the attackers would be the prospectors who are going out to find new business, new appointments. Um, and there's the closers, the people who are signing up the new customers, and then there's the team of people who are managing customers.
Okay.
So finding appointments is one team, sort of signing the deals, and then managing all the customers afterwards.
Mhm.
When
It,
you do that, it usually doubles the results of a team.
mhm. The concept of hunter and farmer was quite old. The new part, it's this specialization in prospecting in lead generation. Do
Hmm.
you think this is also a correlation with the marketing automation tools that allows us to be more professional in that area that before was more like trying to call your contacts, your friends, and now it's more easy to have tools to make it more professional and more wide.
Yes, because I think one very important point is to understand that the marketing generated leads are usually different in many ways than so prospecting generated leads or cold generated leads. So, for example, when you have leads coming to you from 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 content marketing, they're coming into your website usually,
Mhm.
right? Those leads tend to be smaller on average. They tend to be a little further in their understanding of who you are. There's probably more of them, so a lot of them may not be a fit. The point is, there's of course there are leads and there's similarities, but they're also different. They expect much faster responses. So in sales, you do want it. One of the other roles we didn't mention was, and here we call it either a market or inbound sales development rep, and their job is to respond, to review and respond to all those inbound leads,
Mhm.
the ones who that marketing generates. And what happens is because a lot of marketing executives will say, or CEOs will say, I generate all these leads from my sales team, and they don't follow up on them, and they get lost, and they don't even call them. I'm like, what is happening with them? And the problem is, you can usually salespeople, excuse me, salespeople who are doing too many things, it's very rare to have a salesperson who is so organized that they can respond to all their inbound leads and prospect and close and juggle their customers. It's too much. So when you have a bridge, you've got some junior salespeople who are either doing dedicated prospecting someone who's doing dedicated lead response. And if you're a very small company, we'll talk about what you do in this case. But let's say you have at least a few people on your sales team. You only need 2 to specialize. But if you're a marketing executive, when you have a junior salesperson who's dedicated to calling or emailing or reviewing all the leads you're generating, those leads get way faster response. They get better response. They log better information in your sales system, and fewer better appointments get set up for the sales team. It makes an incredible difference to your marketing productivity, your sales productivity, by having the correct set of roles where people can do fewer things better. That's really it, because when people juggle too many things, they do lots of things poorly or good enough.
And continue with this idea of trying to work more on the leads. Do you think that now it's getting harder to get qualified leads? It's something that it's getting more harder every time, or it's with the tools we have right now, it's more easy to qualify and to identify which is more interesting than others. What's your point of view about that?
Well, I think that things always get harder. That's just the nature of evolution and growth, more competitive. And I think, though, for most companies, there's so much room for improvement in whether it's how they generate leads from marketing, or how they generate leads from cold prospecting, or how you respond to leads, or how you coordinate the team of different roles in sales, right? So prospectors who prospect, closers who close, inbound lead response, account management, customer success. So again, probably the simplest idea for people is, long as you are you make sure you have the right people in the right roles and they're coordinating together, like that makes just a huge difference. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people have said that they did this and they doubled their productivity results just from specializing, because people could do things. A closer can just really focus on their pipeline, their customers, and do that really well. Prospectors, if you're not doing prospecting full time, you're not going to be very good at it.
Okay.
Right. So it's about really having a team of experts in their areas working together, like a football team.
A part of this specialization team, it's how to manage this team more specialized. Before, it's getting sales reps that you have a quota and that's it. Now that you have some specialization, there's some new challenge for management.
Yep. There's more metrics, you need more tools. It's a little more complicated.
It's more
in that way.
KPI management than relationship management, no?
And there's more handoff. Yeah, it's like the benefit. There's a pro and a con to everything, any change. So for specialization of roles, the benefits are things like way higher productivity and job satisfaction, easier insights into your business, because you could see, because you have lead generation here and closing here, if one of the areas is the problem, it's a lot easier to see when it's all jumbled together. Also, it makes it easier to grow. because if you have a great sales team of people who are signing new business, and you don't have enough leads, it's easier to hire more prospectors, right? So it's easier to train people and to grow the team. Now the problem with changing to specialization can be, if you have an existing team of salespeople, it can be, first, the change can be because it might require changes in comp plans or your sales system technologies or territories, right? And that can be a pain in a problem. Another problem is it's more complicated around because there's more metrics, right? Because the prospectors have their own sets of metrics. The closers would have their own metrics, and the account so there's just a lot more metrics, and there's more coordination between the teams. So the prospectors or the inbound lead responders have to have a process to coordinate with the closers. So there's more moving pieces and there's more complexity that way, but it's manageable. And when you get it working together, and the time it takes to define a new type of role in the company, and then to get it all the time to have it working pretty well, it was probably like 6 months.
Okay.
If you add a prospecting team or person, it's probably 6 months from zero to it's working well. So it takes time to get it working the way you want, but it makes for an incredibly more productive and powerful and resilient sales organization.
Cool. In your book, Predictable Revenues, you redefine the cold calling that you develop at Salesforce. What are the key elements of this cold calling 2.0?
So, as I mentioned, I created the outbound prospecting or outbound sales team and function at Salesforce.com like a long time ago. It's a little scary how many years ago. And at the time, I did the prospecting myself to figure out the process. Because like, all right, I'm going to figure this out. So I was making phone calls, cold calls, sending emails, and I didn't find cold calls, like calling decision makers and, hey, do you want to buy? This didn't work for me. Sending emails, like cold emails, so emailing people who've never heard of me or Salesforce. And this was when Salesforce, no one knew who Salesforce was. Right, we were under 200 people. This is 2003. Cold emailing worked really well. So basically, long story today, what I find, my specialty, we still work, our specialty is helping companies build outbound prospecting teams, right, that can generate as many appointments as you need for sales. Is that email usually works really well. The phone usually works really well, and they work well together. Some social. It's not about just lots of dialing and here we call it boiler room. I'm not sure what the equivalent expression in Spain would be. It's sort of all you're doing is like calling all day.
Okay. Annoying someone with too much calls. Yeah.
It's not that. Yes. So it's really about knowing who your best customers should be and understanding their businesses and being confident with using tools, whether it's the phone or email or social or going to knock on their door or mailing them a book, being confident in who you should reach out to, how you write the email or make the call, with the idea of like starting real conversations with real people. So I guess what I was trying to say is what didn't work for me and others is just calling and just call and just trying to like sell stuff and pitch people. But when you take a more approach where you're trying to, who can we help, who would need our things, how do we talk to them, how do we help them, and you can do that in a repeatable way, then that's been very successful for when I worked at Salesforce plus other companies. I've seen whether we worked with them or, man, I've had so many companies. I mean, we've sold more than 100,000 books copies of predictable revenue, and a lot of companies have been very successful in implementing these ideas.
Cool. And timing in sales, it's very important. You are getting this relationship with your prospects. How to maintain the timing when sometimes the decision takes months or even years to get the opportunity to really sell something. Sometimes it's more creating a relationship until you have the opportunity to really sell. How you
Yep.
manage this kind of relationship that are not really a short time short time selling.
Yeah. Well, part of it is the company and executives have to have a good understanding of how long things should take. If all of your deals tend to take 9 months to sell, after if there's a deal who's been only at 4 months or 6 months, you can't get impatient with them if you know it usually takes 9 months. So but if it's 30 days, on the other hand, if you normally see sales cycles of 30 days, and now it's been 45 days, so it's really about know your business, know yourself. And when it does take longer, today, of course, everyone should be using things like Salesforce.com or some equivalent system. And the value of that too is you have it's easier to set up. Here are the customers who are not ready to buy today. They're not a good fit today, but someday they will be ready to be customers. So let's make sure we know who they are, that we know about their business. We have a way to ensure that we say nurture them or check in on them regularly, whether that's every 3 months, every 6 months. But again, having a system in place between the technology you have and the people. And for most of those kinds of customers, here we call them SDRs, or sales development reps. Right? There's the junior that does the prospecting or the inbound leads. Like that's for most of these sort of long-term nurture relationships, unless it's a special client of a salesperson, a lot of that nurturing can be done by the junior salespeople. So in other words, a lot of the low, when you have experienced salespeople who are good at closing, you want them to focus on higher value work. And that might be nurturing like a very important customer or company. Sometimes that does mean they should be prospecting, but just to a small number, like 5 or 10 very important opportunities. It could be partners or key accounts. Then everything else should be done by the junior salespeople.
Okay.
Right? It's a team. Why would you, for expensive salespeople, you don't want to have your sort of most expensive people doing, I don't want to call it low value work, but work where you're paying them a lot of money so they can do important things. So junior people can be great at a lot of the volume of things more cheaply, and actually do it better because they're doing it well because they're doing it all. They're focused on it.
No, sorry, continue.
One I mentioned before we forget that if you're a small business or a startup and you only have a few people, what does this mean to you? I get this question a lot. There's actually 2 questions I get a lot. That's the first one. Now, the principles still apply. With specialization, it means that you specialize your time. So let's say that you're the CEO and there's no salespeople. You're the only salesperson in the company. And you feel like you need to either prospect more for new customers, or maybe you have a lot of customers, but you don't feel like you're talking to them enough. Whatever it is, that's that one thing that's really important you're not getting to, you have to put it on your calendar as a block, so you can specialize by blocking out your time. So Thursdays are my prospecting day, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 1 to 3, where like that's what doesn't 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, just that doesn't work, especially with prospecting. The other question, so specialize your time. As soon as you have 2 people in sales, so let's say the first is the CEO, and they want to hire someone in sales. If you're a first-time CEO or first time in sales, it's better to usually hire a junior salesperson who's doing appointment setting and things for you first. So you can close more. And then once you get that process going, then you either promote them to sales or you could hire another salesperson. And at that point, it's a much less risky way to get your sales systems in place. Because when entrepreneurs hire salespeople, they have a high failure rate. So again, it's a lot less risky to hire a junior person first, progress it until there's more a system before you hire a more experienced person.
Okay. I was going to ask you about another important case from impossible to inevitable. You highlight the idea of focus on a niche, and from there begins to grow. It's like a key secret for growing. Why this is important?
So, Mark, so you cut out on the second part of the question.
Sorry. On your last book, From Impossible to Inevitable, you said that it's important to focus on a niche, and from there it's grow to other markets. Why it's important to have this specialization in a specific niche?
Okay, great question. From doing this for a lot of years, especially in helping companies build outbound sales teams, I've seen pretty much everything that can go right and everything go wrong. And when I look back, and whether they were clients or not, or just people with advice or myself, when people have struggled to grow faster, there are a lot of reasons why you can struggle to grow faster. The most common reason, especially if you're earlier stage, is you haven't yet nailed a niche. And so if I step back and say, if you feel like you're not growing as fast as you want to, the very first place to investigate is, have you nailed a niche? And what that means is most companies get off the ground and grow to even a few million through relationships, referrals, happy customers who tell other people about you. But when at some point when you want to grow more than that, you need to learn how to market and sell to people who have not heard of you. All right, and that gap. So selling to people who have heard of you, if it's this hard, selling to people who haven't heard of you isn't this hard. It's more like this hard. So to nail a niche, what that means is you've learned how to find, communicate. It's like find the people who need you. So very quickly let them know about you. Let them know about you so they'd be interested, and then at some point buy. It's a lot harder. It forces you to rethink who your target customer is, how you talk and message, and how your process works. So it can be challenging for companies if all of your business or most of it's come from word of mouth.
And why it's important to focus on a niche instead of focus on a feature or on a special value of the product? Why it's more important to nail a niche instead of focusing on developing the best feature or the best solution for a specific need?
Well, I would say, because it's really about thinking customer first. Who's the customer that needs this and why? Rather than, hey, we have this great product, let's make it really cool. Okay, and who's going to buy it, and why would they buy it? Because ultimately the customer needs to buy something. So I think it's more common when you have a great product and you're struggling to sell it because you're not really inside the customer's head, understanding who really needs it and why. So here's a simple idea on how it is. There's whatever you sell, there's lots of people out there who will think your product is cool, right? And there's lots of people who will think your product is cool and they will buy it. So when are you a nice to have versus when are you a need to have? Because people won't buy it unless you're a need to have. So if you see this a lot, which is people see your product and they say, oh, it's cool, but they don't buy it, it means you're not focused on people who need it, or you're not communicating, you're not helping them understand how to see it in a way where they see it as a need. So, and that's the first place you can start to make sure that you're putting your important energy and time into growing in a place where you have a really good chance of having it work. Because most, especially entrepreneurs, but big companies do it too, they tend to try to sell it to too many people, too many types of companies, and they just waste a lot of energy. Because it's hard to be disciplined enough to be really focused on the type of customer that is the most likely to need and buy what you're offering.
Okay.
Right? Don't get too caught up. You can have a big vision, and you should, but don't let that distract you from the short-term details of, we might want to be able to sell to the world, but for now, there's really just this one type of company that really needs us, and if we can find them, we're going to be growing, and we'll start with there, and as we get a little bigger, we'll add another second type, and a third over time, and like stair step your way to a big company and a big vision.
Cool. Thank you very much, Aaron, for your time, and also for sharing your knowledge and your experience in your books. And thank you for staying with us.